conspiracy theories are dangerous.
Information is the oxygen of a democracy.
With Republicans, with progressives, with libertarians, because this is not about right and left, this is about right and wrong.
1989 is going to come up over and over and over. And in 1989, Teddy Boy started to get really interested in things that he wasn't supposed to be asking about. In particular, he asked his friend at the FBI to write a report of everything that they could find. He wanted them to go through all their files and write up a full report of everything you know about this guy named Major General Robert L. Ferrera. And this following report is everything that his FBI contact was able to glean about the history of Robert Ferrera and all associated operations. For all intents and purposes, Robert Ferrera is Jason Bourne. He is the spy of all spies. We're gonna have an opinion of Robert Ferrera by the end of this, but just roll with it for a bit. And just remember that no matter how unbelievable this document sounds at certain times, I'm going to show you a lot of corroborative evidence from other documents, things that we can verify today online, unrelated to the documents, that seem to corroborate it. So, per your oral request of June 5th, 1989, requesting a full report on the Japanese, Singapore, New Zealand, Kentucky connection, what follows is as complete and thorough an investigation of any and all available files of the Bureau, as well as any top secret, confidential, or personal files from the Department of Defense, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I just remembered too, before we get too deep into this, you guys can find these files. I have put them online. The file I'm reading right now, I went back to try to find its original source, and I couldn't find where I found it on archive.org, so I re-uploaded it to archive.org. And if you want to find this document, this is the URL at archive.org to find this letter that I'm currently reading. So if you guys want to follow along, you can go to archive.org/details/Ted-Kennedy-FBI files, and that will pull up this document. It says, if this report were to be leaked in any portion, Senator, you understand that our agents planted in the above agencies would be exposed and over 15 years of work would be in total disarray. Meaning, like, don't let this out, because the FBI only knows what's happening in the CIA and the Department of Defense because we have spies in our own agencies, because that's how defective and shitty the US government is. So just let it be known that the agencies are literally spying on each other as though it was the KGB in order to get information about what's going on. That's the kind of intelligence space that all of this is taking place in. So context, right? We meet our first main character. During the tenure of Richard Helms as director of the Central Intelligence Agency, decisions were made by the director with implied approval of the Oval Office to draft a blueprint and put into motion a plan by which the CIA could have as much funds as and when needed without knowledge of Congress. This would accomplish the dual purpose of carrying out clandestine and covert operations without the clearance of Congress, as well as avoid the necessity of having to request any extra funds and thus divulging the workings of any covert operations in progress or planned. Director Helms wrote a memo to the Oval Office, which the FBI intercepted, in which he stated, quote, if Congress or any other uninformed do-gooders ever became aware of this operation, this agency and its director will invoke the 1949 Central Intelligence Agency Act, which exempts the CIA from all laws requiring disclosure of functions, names, officials, titles, salaries, number of personnel employed, etc. Using this as the cloak of legality, Director Helms put together a team of 5 people. So you can already get a vibe for where this is going. Let's meet our team. Richard Helms is an extremely important person to know about if you want to know about the history of the CIA. The first person to know about if you want to know the history of the CIA is obviously the Dulles brothers. Alan Dulles and John Foster Dulles created the CIA, and they are corporate lawyers, and they were very closely allied with Nazis, like closer alliances with Nazis than with the president of the US when the CIA was founded. Alan Dulles actively went behind the president's back in order to help his Nazi buddies because they were corporate lawyers and they had been working with all of these German companies for long before World War II, all throughout World War II and after World War II. And don't forget about Operation Paperclip, where they rescued a bunch of Nazis and brought them over here and then founded NASA with them, among many other things. So that's the old guard at the CIA. And underneath them, working with them throughout World War II, was Richard Helms and a lot of these other guys that are sort of like the next generation under, about 10 years younger. And Richard Helms is he has an entire era of the CIA during which he was the Allen Dulles of the CIA. Meaning he was in charge, he had the most influence, and even when he wasn't the director, these documents and other parts of this will make it clear that he was the director, even when he wasn't the director. But just for some context here, this is a list of the various directors of the CIA over time. So the CIA was founded largely by Allen Dulles, but he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and he didn't get in charge until the 50s. Then he was the longest standing director of the CIA. A couple more people stepped through, and then through the 60s into the 70s was Richard Helms. So from 66 to 73, Richard Helms was the director of the CIA. William Colby, we'll meet here in a second. He later becomes the director. George H.W. Bush later becomes the director. These men are all directly involved, as well as William Casey all the way into the 80s. So these are some of our main players, okay? In just a second, we'll meet the cast, the 5 main men right here. So back to our letter. Director Helms put together a team of 5 people. The 5 experts picked were General Edward Lansdale, who ran the CIA activities in Vietnam; William Colby, who was to be put in total command of the blueprint operation when enacted; George Bush Sr., who asked and received approval to have his top aide, Richard Armitage, be brought aboard; and Lieutenant Colonel Robert Ferrera, a top CIA asset, who at the time was on assignment in the Congo on the Patrice Lumumba situation. So Ferrera was one of the secret spies involved in the coup against Patrice Lumumba, and then he was later executed after he was taken out of office. It was kind of a big scandal. So let's meet our guys. Edward Lansdale, total scumbag. He did a lot of fucked up shit in Vietnam, Philippines, Laos. We'll talk about him a bit more in a bit. He is a whole rabbit hole. William Colby kind of comes across as a genuine psychopath when we read through this document in a second here. He later serves as the director of Central Intelligence. He was on that list of CIA directors. We'll get into how psycho he is in a bit. George H.W. Bush, member of Skull and Bones, father of President George Bush. Yeah, I'm sure I don't need to introduce George. He's a piece of shit. And his aide, Richard Armitage, who is kind of the village idiot here. And he's a little younger, and he's basically just George H.W. Bush's bitch boy, is sort of how he got into this. And later we'll talk about how he and his homie that he brought in on this later were, I'm pretty sure, gay lovers, and I'm pretty sure people had blackmail on them. And yeah, just look at his photo. He's about as competent as he looks, and he totally bungles everything up later. So I just want to give you guys faces to these names, right? Because it kind of helps you remember what's going on here. And we'll probably revisit these a little bit later. And then the mystery man, Robert Ferrera. There's basically no pictures of him. We know almost nothing about him except what we're going to learn tonight in this report. There's no documentation of him online. You can't find him anywhere. Despite him being deeply involved in like every major CIA operation for the last 40 years, like every single one. And he's personally known by like everyone from the Rothschilds to the Bush family to all of the presidents like Nixon, Carter. Like, actually, we're going to go through the whole list of he gets associated with like every president of the time, and they all think he's like the most trustworthy. It's so bizarre. We'll talk about how everyone in the world that has power is like, everyone sucks, but General Ferrera, he's super trustworthy, and I take him at his word for everything. And he is like literally the most honorable patriot on the planet. And it's weird. It's super weird. but he's definitely like the hero of this story. I really like him at this point. So, having secured the implied go-ahead, they made a plan. They met in Washington, D.C., traveled to Langley, and 4 of the 5 were handpicked for their very special abilities. Notice Armitage was not handpicked for his special abilities. He's just a piece of shit that George Bush was like, let me bring my kid along. The other 4 were handpicked for their special abilities. Yeah, and the 5th member of the group, Armitage, was brought along by George Bush as his personal gopher. Nice. So Bush was chosen for knowledge of China and his wartime flying ability, because Bush was running CIA operations in China when he was not yet a CIA operative, totally, as well as being on the way up within the CIA and being groomed to be president. General Lansdale was brought in because of his expertise as a top CIA asset, especially in breaking insurgencies, as he did with the Hooks in the Philippines in the late 50s. If you visit his Wikipedia page, you can find the section about the Philippines, and that is what they're referring to, the Hukbalahap. When you start to get into deeper reporting about Lansdale, he did some crazy shit. Not crazy good. William Colby was picked for his knowledge of Southeast Asia and to command the operation's first phase. Lieutenant Colonel Ferrera was included because of his varied experience as a pilot, as well as his command of over a dozen languages and his position as founder of the Special Forces Green Berets, and still at that time regarded as their unofficial commander in Vietnam. I have tried to look up who was the founder of the Green Berets, and it certainly doesn't talk about a General Ferrera, but that doesn't really tell me much, because as you'll see, a man of this guy's position, he scrubbed off the internet. And even if he was the founder of the Green Berets, he's not Jocko Willink. He's not hosting podcasts. They're not going to tell you about him. They talk about other people being the founders of the Green Berets. So we will corroborate his existence in other ways. The 5 names were submitted to, this is an important sentence, just to remember, it's an FBI agent writing this report. And so you can learn a lot about how these insiders see the world by the type of language that they use in these letters and in these documents. And in this particular instance, he says the 5 names were submitted to the godfather of the CIA, John Foster Dulles, who gave the plan his total blessing. That's referring to John Foster Dulles, the Secretary of State, not Alan Dulles, who's actually like the director of CIA for a long time. John Foster Dulles never worked at CIA. And so the fact that he's calling him the godfather of the CIA, that should tell you a lot about how much power the Dulles brothers as a unit had in the CIA, that some 20 years later, an FBI agent is still writing and using that phrase, the godfather of the CIA. Worth noting. This was done. It was named. The master plan called for the CIA to enter into the drug smuggling business in a total and complete fashion. Each of the 5 planners would have his own field to handle. Bush would be the secret head of the airline and handle all the shipping of the drugs under forged waybills. Armitage would be the gopher for the group and the intermediary between any undesirables. So he's like the front man to talk to anyone else in government agencies, to talk to everyone else, to keep people out of this conspiracy. General Lansdale would handle all the distribution network and collection services within the military in Vietnam. Basically, they were selling these drugs to the American soldiers. Everyone else too, but they were selling it to all the Americans, getting all the Americans hooked on heroin in Vietnam, as well as, I'm sure, flying it all back to the States and all around the world and all that. So William Colby was to handle the setting up of all the manpower from runners, peddlers, pushers, collectors, and so forth, as well as the elimination of any who might prove to be uncontrollable. He's a fucking psychopath. We'll talk about that later. Lieutenant Colonel Ferrera was to use his contacts in Latin America and in the Middle East to obtain from various governments the needed drugs, heroin, cocaine, marijuana, LSD, etc., as ordered by Colby. Bush was to handle the opium from China because Bush had the China connection. And this was before all that opium was coming from Afghanistan later on. Seems like the Bush family are really good at finding opium. The operation was given the name Eagle 2 at the request of Ferrera, for he felt it would be lucky to have the same code as the Eagle project he had participated in when he was in the OSS. You look that up, and where did I put it? That's a real project. If it's got a Wikipedia page, it's pretty straight up. And later on, we have a confirmed photo of Ferrera. And I don't think he's in this photo, but we'll compare them just for fun because it's kind of nice to do some Wikipedia snooping. But yeah, the Eagle Project existed. It was a World War II OSS project with the Korean Liberation Army over in the Japanese theater. And Ferrera got the code name Eagle, presumably associated with that mission that he had been on. Before the operation was really off the ground, Colby started his phase of elimination of dissidents, and he did so under the code name of Phoenix Program, which is a real program that you can look up. Colby became insane with his power, and before he was finished with Phoenix, over 20,000 suspects were executed, and over 2,500 U.S. citizens were accused by Colby of being collaborators, and they vanished. Helms attempted over and over again to have Colby eliminated, but found that it could not be done, for copies of all plans as well as secret recordings of all spoken at all of the meetings were in safekeeping someplace as an insurance policy for Colby against Helms and Dulles. So that's the vibe of these co-conspirators, is they're all blackmailing each other. They're all ready to eliminate each other. They're all trying to run their own plans and have their own power. And they're all fucking psychopaths. So, yeah, that's how we're starting out here. There's 27,000 of you in here right now, and you're all legends. Shit's about to start getting really confusing, just so you know. I'm going to do my best to simplify it and to kind of like talk us through it, but just be aware that it's not going to make sense. For many reasons, partly because it's complex finances that I don't understand, and part of it just because it's like, what the fuck are you guys doing? So they tried to get Colby out of there. Helms found that he had to make an arrangement with Colby, calling for Colby to resign from the group and forever retain his secrets. And in exchange for the resignation, Helms, with the approval of Dulles, promised Colby that he would one day in the future become the director of the CIA. That promise was kept by Helms, and Colby withdrew. And as we all know now, that promise was kept by Helms. And so if this document is correct, if this FBI report is accurate, we are literally selling top positions in our government as collateral to tell American government officials to stop killing thousands of people. Please, bro. You're fucking insane. I'll make you the CIA director. Just chill. That's the level that we're at right now. And it doesn't get any better going forwards. More problems were to be encountered in later years with George Bush and his aide Richard Armitage. Bush, for his cooperation in silence, important sentence right here, Bush, for his cooperation in silence, was groomed for his present position, as well as becoming director of the CIA. This is written in 1989. His present position is President of the United States. So the way I'm reading that, this FBI agent that's writing this report is using that language intentionally, meaning that it's his assessment that that is how the presidential position works. We groom people for it from the beginning, which, I mean, we all know that. But it also means that he believes that back then, at the time, prior to him being the president, they were already grooming him for the position. We'll let the skull and bones speculation, just you guys do what you want with that. He was named CIA director so as to increase the operation tenfold. The only person who did their job and asked for nothing in return were the two military CIA officers, Lansdale and Ferrera. The plan was in full force when the United States government encountered continued opposition to its request from the Japanese government ruling party to put CIA-controlled people in power. So they were trying to take over Japan. Remember, Japan is a very strategically important country, and they got defeated as fuck during World War II. And then the U.S. government was trying to take Japan in by any means necessary for decades here. And it's one of the most strategically important bulwarks against China ever since. not to mention technologically, culturally, all sorts of things. So Japan plays a huge role in what's about to happen. Central, actually. Okay. To put CIA-controlled people in power, Bush personally picked an obscure party formed in 1955, bankrupt and with very little membership, to back the possible takeover of the government. But it's called the Liberal Democratic Party. They needed vast amounts of funds to carry out their part. They had to buy the membership and the votes. It was decided to give to this obscure party all of the funds needed. And before they finally achieved power, a sum of over 300 billion Japanese yen had been funneled to them. So that, in effect, Senator, was the start of Operation Eagle 2, which over time has now evolved into what you refer to as the Japanese, Singapore, New Zealand, Kentucky connection. So we have just gotten the Japanese part of the Japanese, etc. connection. And there's a lot more that's going to evolve in Japan, but Singapore, New Zealand come next, and then Kentucky comes last. The name Studebaker will come up a lot, especially in the second cache of documents that we talk about. Here, let's talk about Major General Ferrera for a second. It is impossible to even get the agency or the Pentagon or the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Department of Defense to so much as admit to any such person possibly existing, referring to Ferrera, our secret spy. We might add at this time that it is our supposition and strong suspicion that General Ferrera is now the top worldwide CIA free agent, in charge of all clandestine operations and, if needed, assassinations. We have it on totally reliable authority that Ferrera is responsible only to the real director and secret director of the CIA, Mr. Helms. We have taped conversations between Ferrera and the powerful Baron Philippe Dudaphne, as well as with Helms. This Baron Philippe Dudaphne will come up a lot in this. He is associated with the Rothschild banking empire and international banking powers. It is impossible for us to divulge our methods in securing these conversations, Senator. General Ferrera is so deeply buried in secrecy that even those within the upper levels at the CIA confess having never heard of him. Remember, typewriters, there's a lot of typos in this report. It's the way it is. With our knowledge of the dozens of aliases used by the general, and with our total access to the computer information of the agency, we have not been able to crack the one code word that would give us the knowledge we seek. Our most trusted agents within all agencies cannot unearth an iota of information on the general's true job, purpose, etc., or his present mission. All we have been able to gather of this present work is that he is, quote, giving a helping hand to a wonderful, maligned individual, one Marion Horn. That's the main character of our story. This is an excerpt taken from a top secret report by General Ferrera to then President Ronald Reagan. This report was given by Ferrera to the president in explaining why he was turning down another star. If he accepted, he would have received another assignment, and Ferrera did not want to desert Horn. This relationship that we feel is like that of a father and son has cost the general dearly, for the general is now on the very brink of total financial ruin. His military pay and his agency pay have been stopped as a result of Ferrera withdrawing from any and all assignments. My friend JR collects all that is due to him, is his goal there. This is so we just skipped way ahead in the storyline to sort of like, that's the current state of affairs in 1989, is that Ferrera has abandoned the CIA in order to help this Marion Horn guy. You haven't met Marion Horn yet, but we're going to meet him. And the series of events of how the fuck did the world's top spy come to side with this Marion Horn guy instead of the CIA, to the point of like literally paying his own money, like millions of dollars, to help Marion Horn out. That is like the primary mystery of the first act of this story. So let's talk about how that came to be. The amount in question that now has been arranged to be given to Horn totals 318 billion Japanese yen, all from the sale of drugs to our service personnel. Hold up and just think about that for a second. All from the sale of drugs to our service personnel. That's referring to heroin and all the other drugs, but it's mostly heroin during Vietnam. Think about how much heroin the CIA sold to U.S. soldiers to make all of that black budget money. The profits and the payoffs have reached such proportions that Mr. Helms had ordered that all operations be terminated. Since the inception of Eagle 2, 1966 to 1976, the original Gang of Five has gone in different directions. So let's quickly summarize here. The first 10 years of this whole operation, the Eagle 2 phase of the operation, that went smoothly. And they were smuggling drugs. They set up this airline. Ferrera set up all these contacts, was getting all these drugs. They were selling all these drugs to the U.S. service members and abroad and all sorts of stuff. And we kind of just skimmed over all of it. Those first 10 years, up until 1976, went like a dream. And these five guys, the dream team, totally nailed it. And they made hundreds of billions of dollars, at least, by selling those drugs. And it was so profitable that Richard Helms was like, maybe we should fucking stop while we're ahead, because this is a lot. This is fucking crazy. Is basically what happened. Okay. That brings us to, so it's throughout this story, there's a number of times when they try to wind down an operation or spin an operation back up, and they're trying to launder money in and out of countries in order to wind down and spin up operations. And that's when shit goes wrong. And that's when all the double crossing and backstabbing happens. And that's where all of the confusing, like, wait a minute, I thought that they were on the same team. Like, that's when all of that takes place. So just to summarize where we're at so far. So when in 1973, Helms decided that he could better control international operations from outside the CIA instead of as the actual director, Schlesinger was named briefly. And then William Colby started to make loud noises about the promise that had been made to him and was promised by Helms. Colby assumed the post of director of the CIA, and Schlesinger was given another assignment. If you don't already love Colby, this was done in order to avoid any movement that would endanger the operation of Eagle 2. So there's two times during this whole plot where Colby gets put in and then later Bush gets put in because they needed a CIA director in order to wind things down or remove funds or to like make big sweeping changes to kind of like make sure that all their bases were covered and all the right things were destroyed, like documents and evidence. A lot of evidence got destroyed here. In 1976, the hand-picked new director of the agency was George Bush, who served until 77 only. This was not a very peaceful time for the agency. During the 70s, the puppet of Helms, Prime Minister Kakue Tanaka, was found with his hands in the cookie jar, making money on the side in the scandal involving Lockheed Aircraft Company. And that is a real thing that you can look up. This is Kakue Tanaka. And right there on his Wikipedia page, you can read about the Lockheed scandal where he was doing backdoor deals with Lockheed. And so Japan's government was so key because, like, remember, all the sales were happening way over in Asia, like all this drug smuggling and stuff. And the Japanese government was like the primary ally in laundering all that drug money out back to these guys in the States and into all their secret bank accounts around the Far East. And when Prime Minister Kakue Tanaka, who was deeply involved in this CIA Studebaker operation, when he got caught for this other thing, they started to get really freaked out that it was going to blow back and blow the doors off of their operation, even though he was caught doing something else. And that's what kicked off the first phase of the movement that brings in Marion Horn and sets the stage for this whole thing. So it was too close to all being made public. So Helms, who in the meantime had formed a totally strong relationship with Baron Philippe Dudaphne, who represented the real capital of the world, the Rothschild Empire, decided to stop Operation Eagle 2 and start another clandestine money-making operation and leave Japan. So they're like, packing up. We're going to go smuggle drugs other places. Let's take all of our money and run. Baron Dudaphne, by the way of information, he took over complete control of the International Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD. Which basically gets referred to as basically a Rothschild banking front for international aid development around the world. And it's deeply tied into this plan as like they talk about it overtly as being their sort of like front for putting all of this illegal money outwards into operations abroad. We'll talk a lot more about them later. But anyways, I'm just showing you all these like little side tangents of like, that's a real thing. You can look this up. Like these are all real things that really did happen in the order laid out in this letter. And so it's all just little pieces of data to help corroborate like maybe this is real, maybe this isn't, maybe parts of it are real. Like self-admittedly, the FBI agent that wrote this report, he says himself that like, this is the best I could do. Like, this is as much as we know about what's happening. And the fact that I can cross-check it to all sorts of real things helps me to like feel more and more confident that it's not like some, like, just think about how complicated it would be to fake this whole letter. And then when I show you all the other documents that we've got, think about how complicated it would be to fake all of it just for shits and giggles on the internet. That's like, kudos to whoever can pull that scam off. So they're terminating Eagle 2. They're packing up, and they're trying to leave Japan. With Prime Minister Tanaka being forced to resign, the decision was reached to name George Bush to terminate Eagle 2. So that's why he was made director of the CIA, to wind this whole Eagle 2 project down and to move the Studebaker operation somewhere else. This, by the way, has been done. This was accomplished to a certain degree prior to Governor Carter assuming the presidency. Part of the closing solution called for the return of the 318 billion yen to the CIA, or to whomsoever then Director Bush named as recipient. It was decided that a wealthy and loyal party member was to be found in Japan. This is where we're going to get confusing, okay? This is the money laundering scheme to get the funds out of Japan secretly and into the hands of an American national who was controllable and low profile and not associated with the CIA, but like would do what they needed him to do, right? So I'm going to go away from the document here for a second and just simplify. All the money's in Japan, and they want to give it first from the government of Japan to a Japanese national that's like, okay, now it's less associated with the Japanese government. And then that guy, what they said is he would claim that he'd invested it all in like risky bets and stock market stuff and foreign properties and just like things that you could lose all your money on. And they were going to have him say he lost all the money, but actually turn it into a certificate of deposit for, I believe, for gold, that they could kind of like wipe away all the evidence that actually existed. And then they could just sell that certificate to an American businessman that could buy that certificate. So it's like almost no money trail there. There's a good explanation for why the Japanese dude lost all his yen. And then the actual money in that certificate of deposit for all that gold gets quietly passed to this American businessman that's associated with the CIA, but is not actually the CIA. So that way both governments are protected. The money has changed hands and no one will ever look into it. And they can destroy all the records of that CD ever existing. That is the critical mechanism by which the main character, Marion Horn, gets involved, because he is the American businessman that was supposed to receive that certificate. We'll get into why it got fucked up in a minute. So, in more technical talk here, to have his name entered into backdated records as having been the individual who loaned the funds to the party. So they faked that this Japanese dude was like, they backdated records and they faked that he had loaned 318 billion yen to the Japanese party, and then they were paying him back, is how he gets this money. Then the only logical person who's handpicked, they picked this guy, Prince Watanabe, or rather, Prince Watanabe picked this guy, Mr. Soichi Lizuka. I can't quite read this old document. Lizuka was a very well-respected multi-billionaire. Just typos from the typewriter. But multi-billionaire sounds fun. Totally loyal to the royal family, so he agreed. Now it was necessary to, quote, wash the funds, for they had to pass through the Lizuka hands and back to whoever Director Bush designated. To do this, suddenly found himself in the possession of gold certificates from the Japanese treasury. With these, he was instructed to buy a certificate of time deposit. That is the number of the deposit, and we'll come back to this number later. Actually, here's what I got. I got a little notepad here that we can take little notes on, 405-1100-92. So we have our little note down here, and when we come, we will see this a photocopy of the certificate of deposit later, and we will keep that number there for later. At Mitsui Bank Ltd. Mitsui Bank is like the crux. It's where this all starts, is at Mitsui Bank. The plan was for him to sell the certificate and supposedly invest the monies in various countries, with the eventual story that all the investments had proven to be losers, right? So I was explaining how he's going to just like, I gambled it all away. This was to allow the actual cash to be given to Bush's nominee, Marion Horn. They didn't have Marion Horn yet. They were still looking for Marion. They were trying to find the perfect patsy, so to speak, but the plan was in place. They were like, you're going to do this, and we're going to find a guy, and you're going to give the money to him. The records that we have photographed copies of from the top secret CIA files show that Helms insisted on everything being done to perfection, because Helms was actually really fucking good at his job, despite also being a fucking crazy person. Not the slightest possibility of a slip up. Then went so far as to legitimize the gold certificates by having them registered with the proper international banking institutions, including the World Bank, which was kind of a mistake because later Horn was able to use that to help prove that he was not. We'll get there. This penchant for perfection caused for Iizuka to have to work from 1977 until 1983 while they waited to find their ideal American buyer, because Helms is, doing it right. In the meantime, the Gang of Five, it's a good name for them, the CIA guys, had dispersed. Colby became director of the CIA, and then Bush. Armitage remained as the aide to Bush, always following him around like a little gopher. General Lansdale retired after he suffered a mysterious and total memory loss. Weird. Anyways, Lieutenant Colonel Ferrera reassigned from the operation when he discovered that the drugs, this is important, Ferrera resigned from the operation when he discovered that the drugs were being given to U.S. servicemen. Apparently, they had misled him into thinking that they were just laundering, they were selling all these drugs to the Viet Cong. And he was like, yeah, fuck those guys. America, baby. Like, let's get them all high on cocaine. And he wasn't aware that they were actually selling all these drugs to Americans. And Ferrera is super patriotic and has a super strong moral compass. And you're like, fuck that shit. I'm out of here. And this concept is literally the crux of the whole storyline. Ferrera's moral compass allegedly is the reason why Iran-Contra was exposed, is the reason why we have all these documents today, is the reason why any of this was ever exposed in the first place, is the reason why Manuel Noriega got his balls cut off and shoved down his throat. Ferrera is weird and probably the only cool dude in this whole story, I think, despite being like a spy that kills people for fun. So anyways, he resigned from the operation, super pissed that they'd been selling the drugs to Americans. And then Dulles put out a contract on his head to kill him. But a leak enabled General Ferrera, Colonel Ferrera at the time, to know about it because he is a master spy that had a whole spy network of his own. So he found out about the contract and then he got away. And then he called upon his dear friend, Prince Watanabe in Japan, informed him of what was going on. Then, without any stop, contacted other very close friends, such as Baron Louis de Monche, the Chief Justice of the World Court of Justice, as well as Baron Philippe Dudaphne of the Rothschild Empire, whom the colonel had saved from the Nazis during the 01 missions for the OSS in World War II. And as his last trump card, Ferrera called upon Baron Guy Rothschild, the head of the Rothschild banking family, because the colonel had been very instrumental in obtaining fake Nazi credentials for the Rothschilds, which enabled the Rothschild escape occupied France in 1943. This is who this fucking dude is. He's like that connected that he just calls up the head of the Rothschild banking empire and is like, yo, you know how I saved your whole family from the Nazis? Well, the CIA is coming after me and I need you to give them a call and tell them to fucking stop. So Guy Rothschild called the CIA and was like, fucking stop, guys. I like this dude. And eventually Helms, the other director of the CIA, called up Dulles and was like, listen, dude, you can't do this. Like, you just can't do it. He'll shove your balls down your throat. And eventually Dulles called off the contract. So that's the first time that the CIA crossed Ferrera, and it comes back to bite them later. And I know we're taking a long time on this, but this setup is really important for understanding why the fuck the rest of this story happens the way it happens. We're up to like 40,000 of you homies in here. I so appreciate you all being here. We're live on Rumble. We're live on Locals. We're live on X. We're even live on YouTube, even though maybe I'll get in trouble. So, where are we? They're winding down this whole drug money laundering operation. They're trying to get it out of Japan. They're waiting for the perfect buyer. Ferrera has resigned because he's like, you guys are fucking evil. Like, why are we selling heroin to U.S. service members? They put out a contract to kill him, their main dude. He calls up the head of the global banking system and is like, yo, hook it up. Rothschilds come in, sort everything out. Peace is made. But now they're like, where do we go from here? And the main crux is Ferrera is the crux. And so Helms goes to him and is like, yo, we got to figure this out. Ferrera had and still has the reputation of being totally ruthless and without mercy when he feels that he has been betrayed, or when he feels one of his very few friends have been betrayed. That will come back later. But all that have ever known him state that the word of Ferrera is without price. Helms obtained the word of Ferrera that with his oath, he would never divulge any part of the operation. And that's what allowed them to take off the hit to kill him, because they were worried that he was going to expose all their shit because he was like pissed, right? And he swore that he wouldn't. And apparently that was good enough. He agreed and went so far as to give them the solution of how they could control the Japanese government. And he basically suggested, the short version of what he suggested was like, you guys have been trying to control the Japanese government by buying out the dude at the top, and you should just buy out everyone else. Like, just start a bunch of companies in Japan that make a lot of money and then just fund them a little extra, and then just have them pay all the politicians and go APAC on their ass, and then you'll own the whole country anyways. And they were like, oh, that's a good fucking idea. And they did it, and it worked. You have to realize that, like, APAC wasn't around yet. They didn't realize that you could do that yet. And they did it. And then in 1983, November, the perfect buyer appeared. We want to point out here, Senator, that recent information has come to light that Armitage continued the operation by changing home bases with the knowledge of Bush, but with the hands of Bush tied because of blah, 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 blah. We feel that certain steps are being taken to eliminate by natural causes Armitage. Remember I said we come back to this? And his secret partner, Sununu, I think that's referring to gay lover, of whom I have given you the proof of his bisexuality. I'm pretty sure that what that is right there is like sexual blackmail on Bush's little gopher boy and his partner, Sununu, who comes in later. Because remember, Bush was Skull and Bones. There's like, the rumors about the like everyone jacking off on it, look into it. It's fucking weird. Okay, anyways, enough of that. The word was put out into the financial circles. This is how we find our hero. Our hero. That there was available at a great discount a certificate of deposit in yen issued by Mitsui Bank. And this brought hundreds of inquiries and offers. So they kind of like put out a DL offer into the financial world. Like, yo, we got this thing. If any of you like sketchy scumbags want to buy it. And then they kind of sorted through the pile of applicants to try to find their guy. And they found him. That's just making sure I got all my notes. Yeah. Mr. Horn was the first perfect buyer to be found. For the buyer wanted by Helms and Daphne had to be one that had a past record of mixing in financial transactions in the gray zone. Never anything illegal, but yet on the borderline, right? Sorry, I'll get my shit out from behind me. Mr. Horn, known as JR, was perfect because he was the consummate entrepreneur, developing projects without having the financial backing. It would not do to have anyone well known within the international financial circles for obvious reasons, right? For the press would dive into it fully. Mr. Horn and Eagle 2 seemed to be made for each other, and they met at the perfect time in history. The death of Eagle 2 and the birth of a buyer came about. Dun, dun, dun. It really does read like a fucking spy novel, right? Trust me, we are just getting warmed up. Mr. Horn proved to be exactly what all concerned needed. We're going to skip a lot of this. Real quickly, when they signed the whole exchange of the CD and whatever, they had 3 witnesses there on the Japanese side of things. And for some reason, they already had said in advance that if anything happens to the 3 of you guys, don't worry, we'll pay your family $1 million. And then, surprisingly, all 3 have met their deaths in an identical fashion at the exact same spot in time. Their families have received the funds. No witnesses. Nice job, CIA. You're doing great. Later on in one of the letters, this gets described, I believe, by Baron Daphne as incredibly convenient. We'll get there. It was during this phase of the operation that Helms realized he needed funds to aid the Contras in Nicaragua. The only solution was to continue the operation. So here we go. Eagle 2 happens for 10 years. They're selling drugs in Southeast Asia, Thailand, Vietnam. They're like, fuck, let's wind this down. Shit's getting dicey. Let's wind it down. They take a bunch of years finding the right buyer. They're like all ready to wind it down. They've got this huge operation. They found their guy. They went through all this trouble. They killed 3 Japanese people so there'd be no witnesses. They cleared all the, and then he's like, let's fund another war illegally. Spin it all back up. Like literally right before they'd finished winding it all down, Helms is like, let's go, baby. Fun in the Contras. And this is where everything gets fucked up. Because Marion Horn, this kind of outsider, kind of insider, was like on the take, and he was like ready to go, and he was like doing all the things to take this, to buy the CD and to like get it all moving. And like right during that moment, Helms wants to reverse direction and stop the sale of this certificate of deposit and get all those funds back into operation to fund illegal arms sales and drug smuggling in the Iran-Contra triangle. So here we go. Only this time, it had to be put under the control of Armitage with the full knowledge of Bush, but not of President Ronald Reagan, nor now of General Ferrera, right? Because now they're selling drugs to more people, and Ferrera is not trustworthy. He doesn't want to sell drugs to people, and they don't want him involved because they don't want to make another scandal with it. So he had to be kept in the dark because of his total aversion to the drug trade, which is a weird thing to say because he was the one that had all the drug connections in the first place, but, they're spies, whatever. They can do what they want. He was assigned to other missions by the agency as a way to keep him in the dark. Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North was brought in for the operation. Here's a quote of the night. History has now proven that Colonel North was no General Ferrera. And if you know anything about Iran-Contra and about Oliver North, you know what that means. Because he wound up on the stand basically pointing the finger at the U.S. government, being like, it was their fault that we did all this illegal drug smuggling and arms trafficking. I'm sorry, guys. I didn't really know. I'm just a guy. His job was to be the fall man. And he fucked it all up. And then he went on the fucking stage and he fucked up being the fall guy too. Everyone hates Oliver North. Even though it was actually all the people behind him that were doing all the bad stuff. But that's just such a great quote. He is no General Ferrera. Don't want to move that. So now we're going to reverse the sale of the CD. To avoid any risk, Helms had to stop the sale of the CD, the certificate of deposit. Fortune smiled on Helms. For the Horn group, Horn had like brought in a bunch of lawyers and kind of like associates to help him like manage this like multiple like $100 billion black market scheme, right? And the Horn group did not follow the precise manner of cashing the instrument, trying to do it in a rather haphazard manner. This left the door open, I presume. So Lizuka could be accused along with the Horn people of having stolen the CD. Like it's fraudulent. And thus have all papers confiscated and everyone be lost in jails in the Far East forever. No trace, no records. This would have been successful, except that as yet, unknown persons came to the aid of Horn and he was allowed to leave. So just to get that straight, they had a very complex like system of laundering this money, and the Horn people either added steps or changed something, or like, just they left a little room for error in there. And Helms was like, I got it. We're going to accuse them of, we're going to say the accounts don't exist. The money doesn't exist. The certificate is fraudulent because they'd already covered their tracks to make it look like it didn't exist. And he's going to just be like, hey, this guy's a scammer who's trying to buy all this property with money that doesn't exist from accounts that doesn't exist, put him in prison. And he almost got away with it too, if it wasn't for these meddling kids. The Mitsui Bank and the Japanese government officially declared the instrument to be a stolen blank and thus a forgery in 1983. All was confiscated from Burns and Horn. This was carried out by the Commercial Crime Division, Singapore. So it was like they were in the Singapore's part of the Singapore connection when it happened. At this point, Senator, how much is fact and how much is fiction is hard to tell. You're damn straight. But we believe that the records in our position pretty much prove that all is about as close to fact as is possible in something like this. So just a reminder for all of you out there, no one knows what the fuck is going on. Least of all us. While that's happening, Armitage is in charge of the continuation of the Eagle 2 operation. The name was changed to Operation Golden Triangle, so they're still smuggling drugs over in the Vietnam area. But because none of the contacts established by Ferrera could be used for the purchase and all that, they were worried that Ferrera would find out about the operation, and they don't even want to let him find out. So they're trying to like set up all new contacts and like recreate the operation that Ferrera had made, but they are not as cool as Ferrera, so they can't do it as good as him. And Armitage became the consummate double dealer and the perfect triple crosser. And we have documentation that we have bought showing that Helms and the CIA are in possession of all the proof needed on the actions by Armitage. So Armitage was basically running his own, like, he's like, oh, I'll take care of this operation. Don't even worry about it. And then he just starts like taking all the money for himself. The Bureau estimates, that Armitage has amassed a sum in excess of $100 billion from his own drug selling operation on the side. Like, not even for the U.S. government. It was just like literally George Bush's gophering $100 billion of heroin. Our agents within the Oval Office inform us that they suspect Armitage has invested all in gold and that the gold is deposited in various countries of the Pacific Rim. We will try to obtain full confirmation. The plot thickens. Okay. How are we doing? I'm going to see if we can't beat the P. Diddy stream tonight with this stream. That'd be cool. I'm glad to see you're all in here. Handlebar mustache, please. I'll trust you more. Yeah, we could go there. We could grow that out. I trim it up so that it doesn't get there. Yeah, I won't tell you guys about that part. What do we need to do here? Oh, this part's cool. This part's super cool. We're going to skip a little bit of this, just kind of in the weeds. They're talking about who their informants were and how the FBI knew all this stuff. All would have worked perfection, but Mr. Marion Horn felt that he was in too deep and he had to do something to keep the wolves off his back. So he started to move every rock. Like, he started to collect all this information, collect all the files he could, to try to keep his head above water. Mr. Horn trusted the wrong dude to help him get information. And the dude that he used to get information was actually an FBI informant too, because he was a spineless piece of shit. And apparently they could just walk up to him and be like, hi, I'm a CIA agent. I need to know everything you know. And he'd be like, okay. And he would tell them everything that he knew. And the FBI did that to get him to tell them everything. And his name is John Bennett. And the last known address in our files on him is listed as 60 Adams Street, Biddeford, Maine. And so I'm like reading this and my brain is like, well, fuck, dude, I can let's look that up, right? Like, let's do a little investigative journalism. And ta-da, I found him and he's real. This is probably too small for you to see. But this right here, this is state senators, Republican candidates. He ran in District 2 in Maine. And right there, John G. Bennett, Biddeford, Maine, 60 Adams Street. Okay. And then 60 Adams Street, possible owner. I mean, these websites are not super reliable, but a possible previous owner, Margaret Bennett, at Biddeford, Maine, 60 Adams Street. So I've got I found multiple sources that put the Bennetts at 60 Adams Street, Biddeford, Maine. That's a pretty fucking specific detail to throw into this report if this isn't actual FBI intel, right? Like, you feel what I'm saying there? It's like anytime you get specific details that you can I can probably corroborate that specific thing. The more of those data points we can find, the better I feel about what else is in this report. I just thought it was neat. So we're talking about people that Horn was getting involved with and getting to help him compile these documents, right? Because now we're starting to cross over with the what the FBI is talking about here is they're talking about this dossier of essentially blackmail, of oh shit files that is his life insurance policy that this guy, Marion Horn, this is our dude. He's our main character. There's not a lot about him on the internet, but that's who he is. He compiled this huge 90-page document that's all of this and all of this that we're going to go through in a little bit as his life insurance policy. And right now we're hearing from the FBI about the sources he used and how he put it together, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Okay, their morals. Horn started to make too many waves, and he enlisted the help of many influential individuals, including a friend of the director of the Bureau, Mr. Alan Wolfley. A decision was made, and that decision was that Marion Horn Jr. And his mortgage and trust co. had to be stopped. And to this end, the agency used their informant, Binet, as a tool to set him up. And in so doing, they were going to discredit him in the international financial community, get him blacklisted, persona non grata, all of that. He was in the Interpol non grata book. And then later that got reversed. We'll talk about whatever. As stated before, it was decided that Mr. Horn must be silenced, but without personal harm, right? Because Helms felt that Horn actually believed he was within his rights. However, he had to be silenced. And in the best manner of doing so was to just discredit him. But like, he's a good, like, don't hurt him. He's like, I mean, maybe lock him up in prison in Singapore for his whole life and throw away the key. That's no big deal. But like, don't hurt him, right? Like, he's a good guy. You know, he's an American patriot. What are you going to do? That's like their vibe. And so now that he got away from the prison in Singapore thing. Now Helms is like, all right, maybe we'll just discredit him and like make him look crazy. And that'll solve the problem, but just don't hurt him, whatever you do. Okay. Cause he's a good guy. Cause we're moral people. We are good people. So that's what they started to do. And guess who they got to do it for them? General Ferrera. So it was decided to bring in the general and tell him that this J.R. Horn guy was trying to cheat the government of the funds that were obtained by the Eagle 2 project. And General Ferrera had to be used because he was the only link that was trusted by the powers in Singapore. Because General Ferrera is like the fucking man and everyone loves him all around the world. And he has all the connections all around the world. And so everyone needs him to do all their shit for him, even though they really wish they didn't. So they bring in General Ferrera to discredit Marion Horn. And they lie to him and tell him that Horn is an FBI operative that's trying to steal these funds. And in the meantime, the FBI is running a spy operation in the CIA, trying to keep tabs on what's going on. And so Ferrera starts investigating Horn. And in the process of investigating Horn, he starts finding all of the FBI's moles because he's like Ferrera and he's super good at what he does. And he just fucking slays it. And then so the FBI is like, oh shit, he's going to undo our whole operation in the CIA. So the FBI starts trying to blacklist and discredit Ferrera because he was outing all of their moles in the CIA. And then Ferrera actually just was like, yeah, sorry guys, I'm Ferrera. You can't do that. And he outsmarted them. And they don't really know how he did it, but he did. So right here, I'm just going to kind of skip over it, but he's like, and during his findings, he also started to discover the names of our agents within the CIA, as well as in embassies abroad. He started to feed that information to William Colby, who'd taken over the agency. Per the orders, we used paid informants and runners, plus a plant to attempt this. They tried to forge a bunch of shit to like basically fraudulently expose Ferrera as being like dirty. And, we have never been sure as to why this mission of ours failed, but it did. And the general doubled his efforts to destroy Horn. For now, he was sure that Horn was using all means. So Ferrera was still kind of like, fuck this Horn guy. He's with the FBI and they're trying to discredit me. I'm going to discredit them, right? And then, plot twist incoming. The plot twist of the century. This is where the whole story gets even crazier. And I'm actually serious when I say that. Like, you thought this was crazy until now. Just you wait. Okay, and now back to the story for the plot twist. 48,000 of you. We're almost to 50,000. We're almost going to break our P. Diddy live stream with something that's actually important, not just rappers raping people. I'm kidding. P. Diddy is important, but you know what I mean. Okay. Plot twist. You ready? My hair is getting annoying. I think I'm going to have to put a hat on here soon. Now, all took a turn in favor of Helms, Daphne Rothschild, and strange as it may seem, Marion Horn. This came about because Ferrera kept digging and digging, and the more he dug, the more he became convinced that Horn was an innocent victim who had been used by the agency, which was true. And remember Ferrera's morals and about like, drugs and his friends and just being backstabbed by the agency himself. And that Horn was as big of a red, white, and blue patriot as could be found. And Ferrera became convinced that Horn was simply a super entrepreneur who had managed to out-hustle the hustlers. We have no idea, nor have we found any documentation that will show us why a hard-boiled general like Ferrera would suddenly look upon someone like Horn as a son that had to be protected from the mean guys. But that appears to be what has happened. We have copies of expenditures by Ferrera, as well as his bank statements, that show us that he has used over $500,000 of his personal funds to buy gifts worth tens and tens of thousands of dollars and give them to people like adjacent to this conspiracy, like Ed Ong, Baron de Monchi, 3 prime ministers of Japan, and others, such as the Speaker of the House of Commons in England, telling them all that the gifts were sent to them by Marion Horn and thanking them for their effort. Are you hearing what I'm saying right now? General Ferrera starts to be like, I like this Horn guy, and he's a good dude, and he's actually super legit, and I'm on his team now. And then he proceeds to use his own money to buy gifts for important people all around the world under the fake name of Marion Horn, so that all these powerful people around the world will like Marion Horn, thinking that he had just bought them all these gifts. That's the kind of guy that Ferrera is. And that is the plot twist that is about to blow this whole thing up. Because now the most powerful spy in the world is on the team of the front man that is supposed to be discredited and supposed to be blackballed and going to prison because the CIA needs to get rid of him. And now everything has changed. And yeah, we'll get into more of this in a second. I'm pretty sure that this alliance is why we have these documents in the first place. So, Ferrera, page 14. So, Ferrera's realizing that he wants to save Marion Horn. And when an agency the size of the CIA is after you, as Ferrera has learned from personal experience, the way you save that person is by coming up with a solution that will fix everyone's problems while allowing everyone to save face. Like what happened with him earlier, when he called in Guy Rothschild and he's like, listen, guys, I've got a solution how we can fix this all. I can show you how to stay in control of Japan. Just leave me alone. We're good, right? So he now takes the same playbook and applies it to Marion Horn. And he gives them a solution to the Studebaker matter that allowed all to save face and wash the funds and pay Horn. So Ferrera became the mastermind behind what we'll go into a lot later. Notice the date here, July, you can't quite see, and this when it's little like that. So this is dated July 7th, 1989. And that's critical because we're going to read some letters in a minute here. Well, in a few minutes. This is going to be a long fucking live stream. Some letters that are in this 1989 timeframe. This is when like Horn is like, I think either financially destitute or like in jail in the US or something. He's like in this very much a holding pattern in the US. The funds are locked up in New Zealand. Everyone's writing letters to each other about how it's like, it's all good. We love each other. It's all good. Don't worry. I'm not lying to you. We're going to release the funds any minute. Everything's taken care of. It's a weird time to be alive in 1989. And it's because all the alliances have just shifted. Everyone is kind of playing each other against each other. Ferrera has like changed the whole chessboard and everyone's theoretically going to get paid out and be good. And it doesn't quite happen that way. And now we're going to take a quick detour into Grand Theft Audio, Mafia Vice City land, and gangs and drug smuggling. So is it worth talking about 5-star trust for a second here? Yeah. So the thing I just described where like Horn is chilling, waiting, they're going to pay him, and like the funds are in New Zealand, this solution that Ferrera came up with, for simplicity's sake, that is called the 5-star trust. That is the documents that we're going to go into in a little bit here. Is like everything leading up to this was the CIA operation, the Studebaker, Operation Golden Triangle. It was all their drug smuggling operations for decades leading into this. And then in 1989, once they had tried to blackball Horn and send him to jail, and like he'd gotten away, and everything was all fucked up, and they were worried they were going to get exposed. And Ferrera gives them the solution of like, look, guys, I know how we can like, you can all launder your money and sell your drugs. We can pay Horn. He can stay quiet. Everything can be good. Everything's fine. That solution was the 5-star trust. And it was putting Horn as the trustee, as the name on the trust that they would pay him through these illicit funds, like $100 billion worth of illicit funds. And it's not explicitly stated, but what I think happened that he suggested, or they decided in the background of that, is like, oh, once we get Marion Horn's name on this 5-star trust, we can just open up more accounts under that name all over the world and just launder all of our money in his name without telling him. And that way we're all good. Because it's like this random businessman who's not associated with the CIA, who doesn't even know that we're laundering hundreds of billions of dollars of drug money all around the world in his name. And the accounts are all set up and it's already like, it's all good, right? And so that is where the 5-star trust became, in 1989, it became the CIA's de facto drug money laundering system. And they started to link all of their other various bank accounts into it. And they started to consolidate all of the different operations and all the finances in those different operations into this one giant trust that had like over 300 different accounts around the world with like over 30 banks and stuff. We'll get into more of that later. But we're about to go in this funny detour into the Nicaragua Contra and like balls getting chopped off and stuffed down people's throats and drive-by shootings of Barry Seal and all these other things. And so I just want to put a pin in the 5-star trust for a minute and shelve it, because we're all going to forget about it by the time we're done talking about Ferrera here. Okay. Because shit's about to get crazy. So, and now in the meantime, there's this whole other thing going on. In the meantime, Casey had begun to look upon himself as a demigod, and knowing that the agency had to have funds for Colonel North and the Iran-Contra thing, he started to get very careless. So just to remind us of who we're talking about here, North and the Iran-Contra affair, but Casey is, where are you at, Casey? William Casey, the future director of CIA. So at this point in the CIA's history, Casey was already the director, and then Bob Gates took over for a little bit and William Webster. But Casey had gained a lot of power, and he was sort of like their homie, but not part of the original 5, remember? The original 5, they were the pros, right? Bush, Lansdale, Colby, Ferrera, and then Gopher. They played a tight ship back in Vietnam, and they had that shit dialed. Casey, on the other hand, Casey's late to the part. Oh, sorry. And Helms. I left Helms out of the. Helms is important. He's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. Casey, on the other hand, he doesn't know what the fuck's going on. And he's late to the party. And he wasn't like the big power player in the Vietnam operation. And now he's trying to run this Nicaragua Contra thing. And he's about to fuck everything up. So that's where we're at now. In the meantime, Casey began to look on himself as a demigod. Files that we have obtained show that without consulting Helms, Casey set about establishing his own kingdom with him as the emperor. He obtained help from the very depths of society and put one Alder Berryman Seal in command of the drug road to obtain the funds for the North operation with the Contras. The agency had used Seal since 1981 as a contact man. This is Barry Seal. He's a drug runner. He's got a very storied history, but he'd been on and off of the U.S.'s good side. And he got tapped by Casey because he's a pilot. And they were trying to run shitloads of drugs, like tons, literal tons of drugs, all in big plane flights, as opposed to like little shipments of like hundreds of kilos at a time. They're like, let's up this shit and go crazy with it. There's a line here that got cut off that I speculated about what it said here. I presume that it's talking about how Ferrera hates the drug trade. And so that his disdain for the drug trade came to the fore when he inadvertently on the toes of Casey and almost destroyed the Contra movement. This is a funny story. The general got wind that a second-rate hoodlum, once a member of the CIA, was involved in the importation of all drugs in the United States. And it appears that Ferrera had some spare time on his hands. So he asked some of his friends to do something about El Gordo, Alderberryman Seal, the drug runner. He did not know, and if he did know, he did not care that Seal, El Gordo, was in fact working for Director Casey and was responsible only to Casey, and that by asking that Seal be fixed, he was risking the toppling of the money machine for Colonel North. So just to clarify, Ferrera has his own spy contacts all over the world. He's like literally his own intelligence agency. And he gets word that now there's this Gordo fucker smuggling shitloads of drugs into the United States from Central South America. And he's like, kill that guy. He might have known it was the CIA. He might not have. Doesn't matter. He's like, fuck it, kill him. And that was this smuggling operation that was supporting the whole Iran-Contra affair, right? And he put out the hit, allegedly. Like, when you go to Wikipedia, it doesn't say anything about this General Ferrera guy. It just talks about the cartels killing him. But here we go. So, nevertheless, our tapes of phone conversations to the office of Director Casey show that General Ferrera informed him that he had information showing who the real leader of the drug cartel in the U.S. was, and that he wondered if he, Ferrera, would step on anyone's toes if he stopped that fat son of a bitch. So he calls up the director and he's like, yo, I heard this fat motherfucker's running drugs into the U.S. Do you know anything about it? Director Casey answered no. He was not working for the agency because he's fucking scared of Ferrera. He's like, no, I don't know anything. And Ferrera's like, cool, I'm going to fucking kill him. 30 seconds after that, the general concluded his call. Director Casey called Helms and informed him of the conversation. So he calls up Helms, who's better at his job than Casey is. He's like, boss, what do I do? Even though he is the boss. Helms was very upset with Casey and ordered him to clean up his act or suffer the consequences. This order angered Casey, and he attempted to contact Seal, but he was not very successful. In the meantime, the general's men were successful. On the evening of February 19th, 1986 at 6 p.m., Seal got out of his white Cadillac in the parking lot of his favorite restaurant. The general had his men hiding behind a dumpster. Seal took no precautions. He did not see them. Backed into a parking spot. The men approached. According to witnesses, they went to the driver's side. There were two quick bursts from silenced equipped MAC-10 Uzi submachine guns. 96 bullets smashed into Seal's head and body, and he was dead instantly. The Bureau has copies of all tapes of all conversations with Casey, as well as copies of all police reports. So when you go to Seal's Wikipedia page, it talks about the cartels killing him. When you go to this FBI report, it talks about Ferrera killing that fat motherfucker because he really didn't like people smuggling drugs into the U.S., despite somehow working for the CIA. So that's just one of Ferrera's many exploits to come in this little semi-saga here. Our documents show that as director of the CIA, Casey, without approval of Helms, went into business with drug smugglers, allowing tons of narcotics to enter the country as a necessary cost of higher geopolitical objectives. Our documents show further that Casey ordered the subordination of drug to the goal of overthrowing the Nicaragua Sandinista government. Our information tells us that he allowed 2 southern states to be used as major distribution points for Latin American narcotics. Then he interfered with all attempts by local police and with our own FBI agents to eradicate the problem. So this report is written in 1989. We're talking about like through the mid 80s. Iran-Contra was exposed in, I believe, 86. 1986, 1987 is when it was exposed. So this report, this FBI report, was written 2 years later. We're almost to Manuel Noriega here. Cheers, guys. We might even hit 60,000 before the stream's over. I don't honestly know how we're going to fit all of this into one stream. I thought we were going to go faster than this. We'll have to take a poll in a little bit here to see if you guys want to split it into 2 nights or if we want to do it all in one night. It paused entirely. No, I'm watching it right now, bro. It's still going. The Coca Integration Agency. That's a good name for the CIA. All right. How Seal and Ferrera first met. We don't really care. He killed him. While all this transpired, the CIA had to establish a connection with the kingpins of the Colombian cocaine. SEAL was the connection that helped get them connected. Talking about how they were shipping it in giant single shipments with SEAL and his airline. Now, Casey contacted a corrupt colonel in the Panamanian Defense Forces because they needed like a go-between, a little stop. And this is how Noriega enters the picture. Manuel Noriega, and he was the head of the Panamanian Defense Forces intelligence unit. Thus, Noriega controlled a network of out-of-the-way landing strips in Panama that he agreed to provide for the partners, Leder and SEAL. In return, he received a bunch of money, $500,000 in cash, plus 1% of everything that was smuggled. Additionally, Panama's banking laws allowed them to launder a bunch of Medellin drug profits. And finally, Casey agreed to do all in his power to arm Noriega to clandestinely see that Noriega's foes were eliminated and Noriega could become president of Panama, which happened. I love that Manuel Noriega's wiki photo is his fucking mugshot. Okay. We're about to get to the part that all of you came here for. I posted screenshots on Twitter earlier today. If you're not on Twitter, I posted screenshots of what's about to happen to Noriega on Twitter, and it's in here. And we're about to get there. Okay. The whole operation was the brainchild of director Casey. As Casey saw the problem, the Soviet Union was about to establish a Central American beachhead via the Sandinista government in Nicaragua. The only solution was to eliminate the Sandinista regime. Basic Iran-Contra history there. Since an outright American military invasion was out of the question, and since the only CIA man who was a personal acquaintance of Noriega was General Ferrera, because he knows everyone, and since General Ferrera would not agree to drug smuggling in the U.S., Casey began to formulate plans for a covert paramilitary operation to accomplish the task. However, to do this, he needed Ferrera, and thus he first tried to break Ferrera by giving us fake information and planting fake records in various parts of the country with the idea to offer to clean it up if Ferrera took command of the paramilitary group. So he tried to like manipulate Ferrera into like doing his thing. Don't want to do that. The difficulty was Congress was extremely nervous. They didn't want to give authorization. They were asking all kinds of questions. Congress was about to cut off the money. Okay. And to prepare for that eventuality, Casey decided on a secret operation to keep the anti-Sandinista forces, Contras, armed and supplied. With a need for strict secrecy in order to circumvent the law, Casey set about creating an operation that could not be traced back to the CIA. And he copied the original guidelines of the five, known as Eagle 2. So he went back to the old blueprints for the old Eagle 2 operation from Vietnam and tried to recreate that in Nicaragua, Panama, Central America, South America, drug smuggling. The only difference was that the people in charge were not the original qualified five. Casey even went so far as to name the operation Eagle. But when Helms heard rumors of an operation called Eagle, he asked Armitage if it was involved. And the answer was negative, but we intercepted a conversation between Armitage and Casey in which Casey was informed of the suspicions of Helms. So Armitage knew about it, and he was just playing cover. Casey changed the name to Black Eagle. Real clever. The operation proceeded through a Casey confidant, Micha Harari. Here's our Mossad link. Harari, he's actually Michael Harari, kind of a semi-famous Mossad operative. All of the above came to the attention of Helms, who did not know who was playing for whom. And the only person that he felt placed the country above his personal gain was General Ferrera. So he was like, Ferrera, you got to figure out what the fuck's going on. The general found out with Spatafora that fucking Noriega's doing all these drug traffickings. And then Spatafora helped them write a report about this drug trafficking with Noriega and Panama. And Noriega got dropped from the agency's payroll. But the Panamanian was restored to the agency's good graces when the Reagan administration, a bunch of fucking drama. And General Ferrera and Spatafora continued to complain to the CIA about Noriega. So there's kind of all this infighting. And Noriega found out that Spatafora was working for Ferrera and being a bitch. And so Noriega had Spatafora tortured to death and then dumped his body in a U.S. mail sack and mailed it to General Ferrera in Mexico. Not a good move. So that was Noriega's way of making a point. So Ferrera made his own point. He went, it's rumored, this is a rumor, allegedly, went undercover on his own into Panama and somehow made his way into the compound of General Noriega. There, in the general's own bedroom, General Ferrera is said to have accosted Noriega, bound him up, and personally cut off his testicles. He then stuffed the testicles into Noriega's mouth. The Bureau recorded the incident in its entirety and the voices with their hidden mics, but somehow that all the documentation disappeared from their vaults. Maybe Ferrera went and took it. He's that kind of guy. The general injected Noriega with a full dose of cocaine and left him bound with his balls in his mouth in a drugged stupor. It is believed this is the cause of Noriega's cocaine addiction. Noriega cannot inform anyone because he would have to tell all that he is not macho, and he lives in constant fear of Ferrera. He has even offered to make peace with Ferrera, but Ferrera has not paid attention to the overtures. Noriega, we have learned, revealed all about the Black Eagle operation to Castro. So don't fuck with General Ferrera. Okay, last page. Whew, boy, this has been fucking long. All right. This part's funny as fuck though, and then we'll take a quick break here. So, the partnership with Ferrera, this connection, is hard to understand. For we have no documentation that Horn is paying Ferrera or that Ferrera is making any money from his association. On the contrary, he's actually like given up all of his money in order to help Horn. The FBI has orchestrated 2 attempts on the general's life within the past 2 years, failing in both. Now, none of our agencies can touch him, for he's under the protection of the White House. Remember, 1989, the George Bush White House. George Bush was a direct co-conspirator with Ferrera in the whole Eagle 2 operation, so that's why he's under the protection of the White House. The Bureau has had as many as 24 agents assigned to monitor all movements of Ferrera, but when he started to approach our agents and reprimand them for terribly sloppy methods of trailing, we just gave up. Just imagine the movie scene of that happening. That's for real. That's happening. That's what they said. So they don't know what the fuck's going on. They do know that there's been 14 inquiries regarding General Ferrera into various government agencies, all from friends and associates of Marion Horn. The FBI in 1989 has stopped all inquiries into Ferrera. They've left him completely alone. They have no idea what's going on. It is what it is. And then they end on this line. So in closing, we must add that other information to the Studebaker Black Eagle affair must be obtained from the non-existing files of the CIA. And we're sure that if the general does not exist, then there are no files, meaning the shit is secret enough that that's all you're going to get. And for the longest time, that's all you got. Okay, another long letter to Marion Horn Jr. from Baron Philippe Dudaphne. Baron Philippe Dudaphne loves to write. He loves to hear his own voice. You can just imagine from the way he writes too, can't you? All right. Here's my note. Holy shit, Ed Kennedy was investigating them. Yes, this is such an important letter. And then they found out. Okay, boom, boom, boom. Sick. Holy fucking shit. Okay. Bon ami, JR. Both Mr. Helms and I are of the opinion that the documentation enclosed should be shared with you. So we have taken the liberty to send you the copies you now possess. The original is in our Paris vault. There are no other copies, and we strongly insist that there are not any more made. You understand, bon ami. Richard and I have known for a long time now that certain elements have desired to bring us down. And we have had a rather definitive idea as to the identities of those persons. But even with all that, we were both astounded when we learned that Senator Edward Kennedy had requested a top secret report on our project. That's the fucking FBI report that we just read for 2 hours. That's what it is. And they're freaking out because Ed Kennedy asked for it to get written. And this is written in this fucking letter right here on July 18th, 1989. Bruh. Corroboration is what I call it. Okay. We were further shocked when we saw also a complete dossier, well, almost complete, on General Ferrera. We have come by these documents by having one of our covert agents, quote, liberate the documentation from the vault in the home of Senator Kennedy. They literally fucking went into Senator Kennedy's house and stole the fucking documents. And we have also had all tapes and copies that the FBI destroyed. Remember how the FBI was like, all these documents just disappeared. I don't know how. The senator cannot report the borrowing because he would then have to divulge his own covert operations against President Bush. Because remember, President Bush is on this team. And Ed Kennedy was investigating them. No, bon ami. This is one of those operations when all must remain silent. We cannot and will not help the general in his financial problems. So he's kind of cut off because he was off helping Marion Horn at this point. This is one of those operations when for to do so would endanger Studebaker, the name of like their whole, that's like the OG name of the operation back from the Eagle 2 days. I assume, we don't really know, but I assume Studebaker is like the whole operation. I think maybe it's just the money side of it. It's hard to say. Guys, we're about to hit 80,000 in here. We're at 79,039. We're about to hit 80,000 nerds online at like 9 in the night, 11, 1 in the morning on a fucking Friday night, literally reading CIA documents. Y'all are the fucking shit. I love you guys. Okay. And that we shall never do. For those funds and the others in all question will help save this earth. That's how they see themselves. They're literally smuggling drugs. They're selling heroin to Vietnam veterans. They're fucking smuggling crack cocaine into fucking LA so that they can help save this earth. That's how they see it, because they're going to use all that money to build a fucking really nice highway in Mexico with their buddy's construction company, bro. All right? Just fucking back off the heroes. We are trying to meet, and I put this in all caps because it's literally in all caps in his letter. We are trying to meet our stated deadline for clearing of the 24/25th of July. But if we cannot, we do not want you to worry, bon ami, for the delay will only be short, if any. We shall meet most shortly, Richard, you and your friend. Okay. That's the end of that letter. But just real quick, like, bro, that is why this letter, this fucking FBI report from Teddy Boy exists, right? Full circle. So if you're new to the stream, we spent the whole first 2 hours reading this crazy FBI report that Senator Ted Kennedy ordered in 1989 in July from his buddy at the FBI. He's like, hey, can you do all the research you can about this like Jason Bourne like dude named General Ferrera? He's a mystery. And the dude puts together this crazy ass report about like drug smuggling and FBI or CIA money laundering, and literally about General Ferrera cutting the balls off of Manuel Noriega and stuffing them down his mouth and making him choke on his own nutters. I think it's on the next page. Like, right. Yeah. Like, all this FBI report, they're over here, the home team, the heroes of the story, are over here freaking out because Kennedy is investigating them, writing this crazy report. And so they send some dude into his house to go steal it. That's fucking crazy. This is real. It's like a real document. This is like, you could not write a spy story that's more fucked up than this. Like, holy shit.
American conspiracy theories are dangerous.
Information is the oxygen of a democracy.
With Republicans, with progressives, with libertarians, because this is not about right and left, this is about right and wrong.
It's so sick that we can't talk about it. It actually lifted up, and it could actually turn.
I'm gonna ask you to look away.
Legend has it that Christian Rosenkreuz drew his secret knowledge from the wisdom of the ancient Egyptians.
They estimated 100 yards from the left wing was this 100-foot disc.
You begin to get into this very scary scenario that has to do with the human condition of the proclivity to accumulate vast amounts of power around a handful of people. And right now, these misanthropic sociopaths are running the planet into the ground.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
There's so much evidence out there that even if less than 1% is true, that would be enough to collapse the current paradigm and change the whole planet. Our security is at stake.